You ever walk into a room and forget why you went in there? Or maybe you've misplaced your keys again and chalked it up to just getting older. But what if I told you? What if I told you that maybe it's not just age? Maybe it's your medicine cabinet. Maybe the very pills you trust to help you sleep, ease your pain, soothe your allergies, or manage your anxiety are slowly sabotaging your brain. And worse, they may have been doing it for years without a single warning sign. Here at Calm Voice Wellness, we believe awareness is power, and today, we're uncovering something that millions of people, especially seniors, need to hear. This isn't fear-mongering, it's science, and it's personal. As a medical researcher who's spent decades studying how the human body ages, I can tell you one uncomfortable truth. Some of the most common prescriptions in America are linked to accelerated cognitive decline. We're not talking rare, obscure drugs. We're talking about medications many of us, or our parents, or our loved ones, take every single day. Let's start with this number. Every 3 seconds, someone in the world is diagnosed with dementia. That's more than 10 million people every year. And while age and genetics play a role, the part no one talks about? The pills. Not all of them, of course, but there are 9 groups of medications that have been linked, in peer-reviewed studies, to memory loss, brain shrinkage, confusion, and yes, even early-onset Alzheimer's. And guess what? A lot of these drugs are given to people over 60, right at the moment their brains are more vulnerable than ever. Now, I want to make something very clear. I'm not saying you should throw your medications in the trash. Many of these prescriptions save lives. But as with anything powerful, there are trade-offs, and if you're not aware of those trade-offs, you can't protect yourself. That's why today's video matters. We're diving into not just the names of these drugs, but what they do inside your brain, and what safer alternatives may be worth discussing with your doctor. Let's begin with something you might even find in your nightstand drawer: first-generation antihistamines. If you've ever taken Benadryl or anything with diphenhydramine to help with allergies or sleep, this one's for you. These antihistamines belong to a class of drugs called anticholinergics. That's a fancy way of saying they interfere with acetylcholine, a critical brain chemical involved in learning and memory. Without enough acetylcholine, the neurons in your brain begin to misfire. You lose the sharp edge. Words get stuck on the tip of your tongue. You forget simple things, like your neighbor's name. You tell yourself it's normal aging, but in truth, your brain is slowly being sedated. One study published in JAMA Internal Medicine found that seniors taking strong anticholinergics daily for 3 years had a 54% higher risk of developing dementia. Let me repeat that. 54%. That's not a small bump. That's a flashing red light. And it gets worse when you realize that these drugs are over-the-counter. No prescription needed. No pharmacist warning. Just you, picking up something that promises relief and getting long-term damage instead. Let's move on to a category of drugs that hits close to home for many: benzodiazepines. These include medications like Valium, Ativan, and Xanax. They're often prescribed for anxiety, sleep troubles, or even muscle spasms. And to be fair, they work. They calm the nervous system by enhancing GABA, another brain chemical that acts like a brake pedal. But here's the problem. When you hit the brakes too often, the engine starts to break down. Long-term use of benzodiazepines has been linked to structural changes in the brain. Memory gets foggier, processing speed drops, mood may swing, and studies have shown that using benzos for more than 3 months can increase the risk of Alzheimer's by over 50%. That's not theoretical. That's documented. And yet, so many seniors are handed a prescription for sleep and then refill it year after year, unaware that their cognitive decline might be pharmaceutical, not inevitable. Let's pause here, not to stop, but to breathe. Because this is heavy. If you're watching this and thinking, "That's my mom," "Antut," "Nein," or "That's the pill I've been taking every night for the last 5 years," I want you to know something. You are not alone. And you are not powerless. That's why at Calm Voice Wellness, we don't just reveal the risks. we offer real, gentle, evidence-based alternatives. We're going to talk about food, movement, mindfulness, but most importantly, we're going to talk about having an informed conversation with your doctor. You don't have to panic, you just have to act. And the first action? Awareness. Now, before we go further, if this kind of calm, honest health wisdom resonates with you, take a moment to click the subscribe button and join our community here at Calm Voice Wellness. We're building a safe space for people who want to age with clarity, energy, and dignity. Your brain matters, your life matters, and we're in this together. Let's return to the third group on our list, proton pump inhibitors, also known as PPIs. You might know them as Prilosec, Nexium, or omeprazole. These drugs are used to treat acid reflux, heartburn, and stomach ulcers. Sounds innocent enough, right? But by reducing stomach acid, they also reduce your body's ability to absorb key nutrients, particularly vitamin B12 and magnesium, both of which are crucial for healthy brain function. Low B12 levels have been linked to confusion, depression, and, you guessed it, dementia. In one German study involving over 70,000 older adults, regular users of PPIs had a 44% increased risk of developing dementia. And the worst part? Many people take these medications for years without reassessing. They just keep refilling, even after symptoms improve. You might think the mental fog after dinner is from overeating. But what if it's the pill you took before your meal? What if that fog isn't food-related, but brain-related? And it's not just PPIs. Let's talk about antipsychotics, drugs like Risperdal, Seroquel, and Zyprexa. These are often used in seniors, ironically, to treat symptoms of dementia, like agitation or aggression. But here's the terrible irony. These medications may actually make dementia worse. They alter dopamine and serotonin levels, dulling cognition, flattening emotions, and in some cases, accelerating mental decline. The FDA has even issued a black box warning about using antipsychotics in elderly dementia patients, noting an increased risk of death. But even outside of dementia, these medications can lead to sedation, confusion, and a loss of independence. And now, let's breathe again. Imagine a once bright mind slowly dimming, not because of disease or age, but because of a pill that promised peace. That's the heartbreak of overprescribing antipsychotics in seniors. We've seen it too many times. A vibrant, expressive grandparent becoming quiet, distant, and disengaged after starting these drugs. It's not always because of the condition. Sometimes it's the treatment itself that closes the curtain. Now let's turn to a category many people assume is safe because it helps with sleep. The infamous Z drugs. Medications like Ambien, Sonata, and Lunesta are frequently prescribed to older adults who struggle with insomnia. And let's be honest, at a certain age, getting a full night's rest can feel like chasing the wind, so when something offers relief, it's tempting to take it. But the problem is that these drugs do more than help you sleep. They interfere with the brain's natural sleep architecture. That's not rest, that's sedation. When your brain is sedated, it skips the essential stages of sleep, like deep sleep and REM. And those stages are where the magic happens. Memory consolidation, emotional processing, cellular repair. Without them, sleep becomes a surface-level illusion. You close your eyes at night, but you wake up tired, foggy, and sometimes disoriented. You might forget what day it is. You may repeat yourself without noticing. And night after night, that adds up to real, measurable cognitive decline. The British Medical Journal published findings that connected long-term use of Z drugs to increased risk of dementia and falls. Falls in seniors aren't just about broken bones. They often mean broken independence, all because of a little pill that whispered a promise of sleep. Next on our list, tricyclic antidepressants. Names like amitriptyline and doxepin may ring a bell. These are old-school antidepressants, still used today in older adults to treat depression, anxiety, even chronic pain or migraines. But here's the problem. These drugs, too, are potent anticholinergics. They block acetylcholine, the very neurotransmitter we've been talking about that's so essential for memory and clear thinking. In younger brains, there may be some buffer, but in aging brains, already sensitive to chemical shifts, blocking acetylcholine can be devastating. Imagine trying to learn a new task when the communication wires in your brain are being cut, or trying to recall a name when the retrieval path is blurred. The result can look exactly like dementia, but in some cases, it's not the disease. It's the drug. A 2015 study in JAMA showed that the higher the dose of anticholinergic medications and the longer they're used, the greater the risk of developing dementia. And yet, these medications are still widely prescribed to older adults, even when safer alternatives are available. The tragedy isn't just the damage, it's the fact that it may be preventable. Now let's talk about something a bit more personal and, for many, embarrassing: bladder control medications. As we age, issues like overactive bladder become more common. And so, doctors prescribe drugs like oxybutynin, tolterodine, and sulfenacin to help. These medications reduce bladder spasms, which can be a huge relief, but they also carry a hidden cost. You guessed it, anticholinergic effects. Again, that same dangerous disruption to acetylcholine in the brain. And here's what's different about bladder medications. They're often prescribed long-term, with very little monitoring of cognitive side effects. A study from UCSF found that seniors who took these bladder control drugs had smaller brain volumes and performed worse on memory tests than those who didn't. We're not talking about rare side effects. We're talking about real structural brain changes. And because bladder issues are so common, and because these drugs are so quietly prescribed, millions of seniors may be unknowingly compromising their mental clarity just to avoid a leak or a rush to the restroom. What's more important, a dry night's sleep or keeping your memories? Let's take a deep breath now and think about the medications we've covered so far. This is not about fear, it's about clarity. Because once you understand the risks, you can begin to protect yourself and those you love. You can ask smarter questions. You can revisit prescriptions. You can look for natural or safer alternatives. That's what informed care looks like. That's what empowered aging feels like. Now let's move into a category of drugs that's almost synonymous with senior care. Statins. These cholesterol-lowering medications, such as atorvastatin, simvastatin, and rosuvastatin, are prescribed to millions of older adults. Their role in preventing heart attacks and strokes is well known. But what's less discussed is how they may impact the brain. Here's the surprising truth. Your brain actually needs cholesterol. It holds about 25% of your body's total cholesterol supply. Why? Because cholesterol is essential for building cell membranes, producing hormones, and most importantly, creating synapses, the communication hubs between brain cells. When statins lower cholesterol too much, especially in the brain, it can disrupt neurotransmitter production, including serotonin and dopamine, the same chemicals that regulate mood, focus, and memory. Many people on statins report feeling mentally foggy. Some say they struggle to find words, to focus, or to maintain short-term memory. A study in the journal Pharmacotherapy found that 75% of patients who experienced memory issues improved after stopping statins. That's not to say these drugs should be avoided altogether. They do save lives. But again, it's about knowing the risks, especially if you or someone you love has started feeling off after starting a statin. And now, we arrive at the most dangerous class of all, anticholinergic combination medications. This is not one drug, it's many. It's the cocktail effect. Imagine someone takes a sleep aid at night, an allergy med in the morning, and a cold and flu pill in the afternoon. All of them contain anticholinergic ingredients. Separately, the risk may seem minimal, but combined, over weeks and months, the effect becomes toxic. A 10-year study tracking over 3,300 older adults found that those with the highest cumulative exposure to anticholinergic drugs had a 54% higher risk of developing dementia. And here's the kicker. The risk persisted even in people who stopped taking the drugs years earlier. That means the damage may linger in the shadows, waiting to emerge when it's too late. These drugs hide in plain sight. They're in cough syrups, motion sickness patches, sleep aids, and even muscle relaxers. That's why so many seniors unknowingly take multiple anticholinergic medications at once, never realizing they're creating a perfect storm in their brain. And when confusion begins, when memory slips, when personality changes, no one looks at the medicine cabinet. They look at aging, they look at genetics. But often, the culprit has been in their daily routine all along. So let's flip the script. Let's talk about nourishment, healing, the simple, powerful things you can do every day to protect your brain. In just a moment, I'm going to share 3 science-backed foods that have been proven to support cognitive health, reduce inflammation, and, yes, even delay or prevent dementia. These foods are affordable, accessible, and best of all, delicious. And if you've made it this far, thank you. Your time, your presence, your curiosity, they matter. If you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe to Calm Voice Wellness and become part of a growing community that believes in mindful health, real solutions, and calm, clear living. We're here for every question, every concern, every story. And this is only the beginning. Let's begin with something small, round, and surprisingly powerful. Blueberries. You've probably heard them called superfoods before, but in the world of cognitive health, they go by another name, brain berries. And that's not marketing hype, that's neuroscience. Blueberries are rich in compounds called anthocyanins, a type of antioxidant that specifically protects neurons from oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is what happens when unstable molecules called free radicals start damaging your cells, kind of like rust forming on metal. Over time, that rust builds up in the brain, contributing to aging, memory loss, and neurodegeneration. But anthocyanins work like tiny repair crews, cleaning up cellular debris and shielding the brain from further harm. In one study conducted at the University of Cincinnati, older adults who drank blueberry juice daily for 12 weeks showed notable improvements in memory and learning tests. That's just 3 months. And the only change was adding blueberries. Think about that. No new medications, no radical diets, just nature doing what it does best. And blueberries are easy to work into your life. Toss them into oatmeal, blend them into a smoothie, or freeze them for a refreshing snack. You're not just feeding your body, you're giving your brain a shield. Every handful is a step toward mental clarity. Next up is a food that comes from the sea, packed with richness and essential fats, fatty fish, especially salmon, sardines, and mackerel. These fish are loaded with omega-3 fatty acids, particularly DHA, which makes up a major part of your brain's structure. Think of DHA as the oil in your brain's engine. Without it, things grind, slow down, and eventually wear out. DHA helps keep the walls of neurons fluid and flexible, which is essential for brain cell communication. It also reduces inflammation, the silent culprit behind so many chronic conditions, including cognitive decline. Inflammation in the brain can disrupt synaptic connections, cause memory problems, and even lead to depression or anxiety. A meta-analysis published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease found that people who ate fish at least once a week had a 60% lower risk of developing Alzheimer's. That's huge. And the benefits weren't just preventative. Even those with mild cognitive impairment saw improvements when they increased omega-3 intake. It's like giving your brain new wiring, fresher, more responsive, more alive. Don't like fish? You can also get DHA from algae oil, which is a vegan-friendly source. And if supplements are more convenient for you, look for those with high DHA content and third-party testing for purity. The brain doesn't care where the DHA comes from. It just knows it needs it. And finally, let's talk about something green, humble, and absolutely vital: leafy greens. Think kale, spinach, collard greens, and even Swiss chard. These vegetables are packed with vitamins and minerals that your brain depends on, especially vitamin K, lutein, folate, and beta-carotene. Each of these nutrients plays a key role in preserving memory, supporting attention, and fighting off age-related decline. Vitamin K helps regulate calcium in the brain and may reduce the risk of developing Alzheimer's. Lutein is a pigment that accumulates in the brain, protecting it from oxidative damage and enhancing visual spatial memory. Folate supports DNA repair and neurotransmitter production. And beta-carotene, a precursor to vitamin A, strengthens the brain's defense against toxins. A study published in Neurology found that people who ate 1 to 2 servings of leafy greens per day had the cognitive abilities of someone 11 years younger than their actual age. 11 years. Imagine gaining back a decade of mental clarity simply by eating a salad. The beauty of leafy greens is that they're versatile. You can sauté them with garlic, throw them into soups, blend them into green smoothies, or even stir them into scrambled eggs. They're easy to grow, affordable to buy, and full of life. And when you eat them regularly, you're not just feeding your body, you're rewiring your future. Now, I know that lifestyle change isn't always easy, especially if you're managing medications, mobility issues, or caregiver responsibilities. But this isn't about perfection. It's about progress. Every small shift counts. Swapping out one pill for a food, asking one more question at your doctor's appointment, reading one label before you reach for something familiar. These little actions compound into something powerful: agency, clarity, and control. We began this journey talking about the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, about how memory loss isn't always about age, about how some of the most trusted medications can quietly chip away at the very thing that makes us, us. But now, we end on something far more hopeful. You are not stuck. Your brain is not broken. You are capable of protecting your mind, nurturing your clarity, and aging with the dignity and independence you deserve. You can take control, not by eliminating every risk, but by understanding it. By having honest conversations with your doctor, by nourishing your brain through the foods you choose and the awareness you build. And we're here to help you do just that. At Calm Voice Wellness, we believe that knowledge is healing, that wisdom doesn't come from fear. It comes from calm, clear choices made day by day, bite by bite. If this message resonates with you, if you found value, comfort, or a spark of empowerment here, we invite you to subscribe, join our community, and become a voice for wellness in your own life. Because this isn't just about preventing dementia, it's about waking up each day with a clear mind, a hopeful heart, and the tools to keep it that way. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. And remember, it's never too late to begin again, to nourish your brain, and to live well, gently, and fully.